Welcome in for another episode of the Silver and Blue Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Sanchez. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Corey Douglas. Corey, we just enjoyed a little bit of a bye week ourselves. We recapped the Bears game and then took a little bit of time to recharge, and we're back to preview this road trip to Lambeau Field. Had been a minute. How are we doing, Corey?
Oh man, we're doing good. I feel refreshed actually. Like you said, we took a nice little hiatus a little bit along with the Cowboys. Definitely enjoyed time away from the team and having to cover the team, but now I'm excited to be back as we prepare for this stretch run. And there's a lot of kind of news floating around out there that I'm pretty excited about. Hopefully, it comes to fruition. But other than that, man, everything's good over here.
Yeah, before we talk about the Packers game, I do want to talk about the Odell Beckham stuff because that stuff has kind of started to circulate more and more since we've last spoken. And um, OBJ hasn't been shy about his interest in the Cowboys. Jerry Jones hasn't been shy about his interest in OBJ. Micah Parsons and Ezekiel Elliott haven't been shy about their interest in OBJ. Cowboys players are recruiting him. There's a lot of positive noise about it that he's going to get medically cleared this week off of his ACL injury. He apparently wants a multi-year deal, and it seems like, and he says he wants to play on a contender. And I think he said in his interview, I think he specifically said, like a 6-2 team, and Cowboys are 6-2. It's just a lot of signs are pointing towards Odell Beckham having a star on his helmet here pretty soon, which is pretty exciting given the Cowboys' failure at the trade deadline to acquire a wide receiver. They came close to getting Brandon Cooks, but that fell apart, unfortunately. But kind of sounds like Dallas to Odell Beckham has a lot of steam to it.
Yeah, and I'll add a couple more players that kind of spoke out here recently during their media sessions where, CD Lamb talked to the media today and he said that, they had three number one receivers his rookie year. So why not, add another a third wide receiver one again? Dak Prescott said anytime a talent is out there like that, of course you want him on your team. So like you said, the full court press is on. I know Cowboys insider Bobby Belt said that he would be shocked if the Cowboys or if Odell didn't have a star on his helmet within a couple of weeks. So I mean, all the momentum is there, and now I'm just waiting for the heartbreak because I like that Odell signing with another team that's not the Cowboys is going to sting a little bit after like all the hype around it.
Yeah, it would sting a little bit, especially at this point, and especially now that they've kind of shown the Cowboys have shown based on their interest in other receivers at the trade deadline and their interest in Odell Beckham. They clearly are trying to improve this receiver room. It tells you all you need to know about how they feel about their receivers. And I don't think it's that they think their receivers are bad, but they could really use another receiving option, and honestly, just depth as well. Like if CeeDee Lamb or Michael Gallup goes down, you're kind of cooked. And so it would be really nice to have an extra option out there. And there's some really positive steam about Odell and the Cowboys potentially, creating a little partnership here to come in here. And honestly, it just makes too much sense. You look at the other teams that are being mentioned in, contention for him, apparently. Not many of them have a whole lot of cap space. Like the Bills are being talked about a lot. They don't have very much cap space left. The Cowboys have a lot of that leftover cap space from the offseason. Cowboys, by far, I believe, among the teams that are kind of talking to Odell, have the most cap space above all of them. So, um, and
And
go ahead.
or no, just one quick. I wanted to jump in on the Buffalo Bills. I mean, they have kind of an X factor of a scenario that kind of came into play this week with the Josh Allen,
Yeah.
elbow injury. So I think that is huge. I mean, he hasn't been practicing this week up in Buffalo. So I think that's something to monitor. And obviously, Odell Beckham is definitely going to take a look at that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something to consider for Odell as well. But I just think he would fit really well in Dallas. I think if I'm Odell, I'm looking at some of these places that I'm in the mix for, and I want to go to a place if I'm Odell where I'm not going to be asked to do a ton. Like, yes, he's going to want to roll, but at this stage of his career, coming off his second ACL injury, Odell probably needs to be at a place where he's the number two, maybe number three guy. And you look at the teams in contention for him, he would I mean, he would be leaned on a lot in Green Bay. Green Bay is a team that's thrown out there for him. The San Francisco has been mixed in there. That would be a decent spot for him, but I don't know how strapped they are for salary cap. It's just among the teams in the mix for him. I think Dallas makes the most sense financially, and it makes the most sense role wise. And I think he would fit pretty well with Dak Prescott. And honestly, it's hard. You have to limit your expectations because this is not 2014 Odell Beckham. This is 30-year-old Odell Beckham coming off of his second ACL injury. They would ease him back. And I think this is a situation where he would be able to sort of ease into things and get better as the season goes. And I'm not sure how quickly this will come to fruition. Like you said, I think Brian Broaddus said that, this could leak into Thanksgiving maybe. And I wouldn't hate that, just to, give Odell some time to ramp up for the playoffs. And, a top 4 wide receiver room of CD, Gallup, Odell, and Noah Brown is nothing to sneeze at. And I really think Odell would help this team. I hope they sign him. And honestly, it would be a type of go for it move where you look around the NFC, and we've talked about this at length throughout the season. The NFC is not very strong outside of Dallas and Philadelphia. And then I guess Minnesota, you have to give them their props, but they seem like a little bit of a paper tiger too. Dallas has to go for this. This is their best chance to get to the NFC Championship game and get to the Super Bowl. And I mean, I guess last year was a pretty good chance, but the NFC was way more difficult last year.
Absolutely.
This is about as good of a chance as you're going to have at going to the Super Bowl. So we'll see how things play out. But I think I tweeted this morning or yesterday that I would like all the rumors and noise and everything is just lining up to where I would be, like Bobby Belt said, like I would be pretty shocked if Odell isn't a Cowboy this year. And now I'm very interested to see what his contract would look like. Apparently, he wanted the Michael Gallup deal from the Rams, and they just couldn't make it happen. I'm very curious to see what his contract will look like. It sounds like he wants a multi-year deal. I don't really know what the Cowboys would be willing to do there because they're going to have to pay Trevon Diggs and CeeDee Lamb this offseason. So just something to keep an eye on. But yeah, this is our first time really having the Odell conversation, and I think we're both all for it, just from a standpoint of it makes your team better. And this is your best chance to go to the Super Bowl in forever. Let's go for it. Let's make this happen. I think you and I are on the same page there, no?
Yeah, and I guess just one quick note just to wrap this conversation up. But I actually, there's been some conversation around like him wanting a multi-year deal. He's tired of living out of a suitcase. Those sorts of conversations. And if I'm the Cowboys, that works to my favor because not only can you manipulate the cap to where you can get it to a number that you want, but then you're not just paying for a literal rental. You'll have him going forward for next season and maybe the season after that. So I think the fact that he wants that multi-year deal, I actually like that for the Cowboys. And that way it kind of solves a receiver issue going forward as well. Now that you got Michael Gallup signed and then CeeDee Lamb's coming up and you'll get him signed, I'm assuming. So, I mean, I just think it's a no-lose situation, regardless of whether he comes in and is, like he was playing the type of football he was playing in the Super Bowl before he got hurt, or if he
Yeah.
comes in is not quite that same player, he can still contribute on some level, and he's better than what you're going to roll out there with a Jalen Tolbert who hasn't quite panned out during his rookie year. So, like I said, it's a no lose situation for the Cowboys. This is a move that at this point I want to see them make and complete, and let's try to go get a ring for the first time in forever.
Yeah. Well, I know we keep saying it, but this is the best chance they're going to have. And, the NFC is probably not going to be this week in a long time. So, I think they should go for this. And I think if you can get anything remotely close to what Odell gave the Rams last year out of Odell this year, I think you would take that all day. And I think, the way Dak is as a quarterback, he doesn't feel forced to feed the ball to different receivers. He spreads it around well. He finds the open guy. I just think Odell would fit really well in this offense next to CD and Gallup. So that's our Odell conversation. This is kind of our first time having that conversation. And in the coming week or two, as more news comes out about it, you and I will obviously be be on top of it, as Odell's kind of the last move Dallas is going to be able to make to get ready for the playoffs after the trade deadline. So that's where things are at. But we've got a big game to talk about this week, and I think I've mentioned on prior shows, I will be in attendance. I will be driving down to Wisconsin on Saturday with my best friend, who is a diehard Packers fan. He's a little bit bummed out about how their season is going. We had different. We'd envisioned a little bit of a different type of matchup when we bought our tickets a few weeks ago. Considering the Packers haven't won a game since I bought my tickets about a month ago, but yeah, really interesting game, and I gotta say, I'm a little nervous. I'm pretty nervous about this one, even with how Green Bay's playing, just the demons Dallas has in the stadium, the demons they have when Aaron Rodgers is on the other sideline. There's a lot going into this game, and Mike McCarthy's homecoming to Green Bay. He got emotional in his press conference earlier this week, talking about how he raised his family there and how he just misses the people. But yeah, this is a really interesting game. And a game that, if you would have told me before the season that Dallas was going to be 5-point, I believe it's up to 5.5 point favorites in Lambeau Field, and Aaron Rodgers isn't hurt. Like if you would have told me that was lying, I'd be like, okay, so Aaron Rodgers is out. No, Aaron Rodgers is playing, and Dallas is favored by 5.5. I would have said you're crazy. So it's a really interesting matchup across the board, and this is kind of a statement opportunity for Dallas. I know this isn't the Green Bay we're used to, but going into Lambeau and getting a win where Dallas has really struggled to beat Aaron Rodgers, it would definitely be a little bit of a statement win, and it would also more or less bury the Packers out of playoff contention for sure.
Yeah, I think anytime I see Aaron Rodgers on the Cowboys schedule, I'm nervous. I mean, they're 3-6 right now. They've lost 5 games in a row, but game is not going to be as easy as I think people are anticipating. I think a lot of people are anticipating the Cowboys to go in there and kind of roll the Packers. And just with Aaron Rodgers on the other side and his history versus this franchise, I just can't have that same expectations. I would expect a Cowboys victory. Of course, we'll get into that with our predictions a little bit later. But anytime Aaron Rodgers is over there, I don't care the cast of characters he has. I mean, I know they have like 14 starters on the injury report as of yesterday. I'm not sure what it quite looks like today, but I mean, Aaron Rodgers is scary. And I know he was asked after the game, after their 5th straight loss this past Sunday, does the Cowboys' success in the past kind of give you kind of like a boast of confidence heading into this game? He was like, well, not really. New teams, new situations, yada yada yada, the
Mhm.
cliche quarterback talk. But I'm not buying it for a second. I think he's going to come into this game. He's going to be feeling good. I think there is going to be a little extra motivation going against his former head coach, Mike McCarthy. Although they both kind of downplayed, how quote unquote bad that relationship got. But yeah, this is something that if the Cowboys go in there and take this game lightly, they will walk out of there with an L.
Yeah, so before we get into the offense versus defense and each side of the ball, you mentioned the injuries, and we usually go over the injury report. Cowboys are pretty healthy. Anthony Barr might miss the game. There's some optimism there. He was a DNP both yesterday and today. Jake Ferguson was a late DNP today. Interesting there. But other than that, it sounds like the Cowboys are going to be more or less healthy. Zeke was limited both Wednesday and Thursday, and usually he's all, yeah, I'm good, I'm playing. But he had some comments this week where he said he wasn't sure yet.
Yeah,
So I wonder if they give Zeke another week, which is perfectly fine, honestly, because you've shown you can do just fine with Tony Pollard back there. And I want Zeke healthy. I don't want Zeke playing hurt. We saw how that looks last year. Let's get Zeke right. Let's get Zeke healthy. But yeah, we talked at length about how important this bye week was for Dallas health wise. The defense was really nicked up, and it seems like all those injuries have gotten a really nice couple weeks to get right and get their bodies taken care of. But looking at the Packers injury report, you mentioned how long it is. I'll just mention the notable ones. Sounds like Christian Watson's going to be good to go. Sammy Watkins, DNP, Wednesday limited, Thursday. Eric Stokes, DNP both days. So that seems to indicate he probably won't play. Let's see here. Looking more. Elton Jenkins was a DNP Wednesday, limited Thursday. probably means he's going to be good to go. Rashawn Gary tore his ACL last week, so that obviously means he's out this week. That's a massive injury for Green Bay and everything he does for them.
Absolutely.
Romeo Doubs, they're one of their really good young receivers who's been in a really bad wide receiver room. He's been one of their better ones. And I'm looking up and down here. Devondre Campbell, DNP both days. And David Bakhtiari was at DNP Wednesday and was limited Thursday. That's probably just some veteran rest. I imagine Bakhtiari's good to go. But Green Bay's really banged up, especially in that wide receiver room. So this is definitely a game where the Cowboys are going to have some spots where they can take advantage. Let's get into some of those spots. Let's start the Cowboys defense against the Green Bay offense. And this is about the worst Green Bay offense we've seen with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. And I don't know, probably ever. They just can't score. They, I believe, finished with 9 points last week against Detroit. The protection for Rodgers hasn't been great. They've been a little bit banged up front. Rodgers is playing some of the worst football of his career. I mean, Sunday might have been the worst I've ever seen Aaron Rodgers
Some of
play,
those picks he
frankly.
threw.
Yeah, and he just, and there seems to be some bad vibes. There's a report that the receivers aren't really happy that he kind of ignored them during OTAs, didn't show up OTAs or anything, and now he's just throwing them under the bus to the media. So there's some issues going on in that locker room, the issues going on in that offense. They're not healthy, and they seem that the locker room seems to be not in a great spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at that offense, I mean, they lost Devontae Adams. We all knew that was going to be a huge loss because just how much they used him in that offense. But I did not foresee this happening because, I mean, this is the same team that went into an undefeated Arizona Cardinals team without Devontae Adams last week or last year, I mean, and were able to, knock off the undefeated Arizona Cardinals. This is a team that they had won, I believe, 6 or 7 games in a row without Devontae Adams. And I mean, you look at some of these other situations around the league, like Patrick Mahomes loses Tyreek Hill. They're still one of the best offenses in the league. And it's actually brought into question on how much Aaron Rodgers really cares about this situation, about this year. Some feel that he's kind of checked out. Of course, he says it's ridiculous, but people are looking at his body language, just looking at the way he is throwing these young receivers under the bus, just looking at just the way his overall energy and the way his demeanor is on the field is something that they haven't seen before. So I just really can't believe that this is kind of the Packers offense that we're rolling into. Like you mentioned or touched on at the beginning of the show, like this matchup is not what we kind of anticipated. This isn't the Aaron Rodgers that we probably anticipated. But with all that being said, he's still Aaron Rodgers. Dallas Cowboys are still rolling in there. Mike McCarthy's going to be rolling in there, and you just can't take this matchup lightly. They have some young guys that have flashed on offense that can make big plays, like Romeo Doubs. I'm not sure exactly what his status is. You said that Christian Watson's trending towards playing. He's a young athletic guy. You have Aaron Jones at running back if he's able to play. AJ Dillon's a tank to tackle, and it's going to be cold in Green Bay, which is always an advantage and always something that Aaron Rodgers talks about. So it's going to be interesting to see, exactly how the Packers try to attack this Cowboys defense. I know Aaron Rodgers has been very complimentary of Michael Parsons and, Trevon Diggs as a ball hawk. So I'm kind of interested to see how they attack this defense.
Yeah, the way things have been going for Green Bay is they aren't really attacking downfield. They don't have the receivers to do it. And Aaron Rodgers just isn't playing well. I mean, I don't know if you watched a lot of their Sunday night game against Buffalo a couple weeks ago, but I mean, they're down 3 scores in the fourth quarter and they're still running the ball. Like they're not even trying to attack downfield. And it's just a clear lack of faith in their receivers and their ability to win downfield. And, some of that's an indictment on Rodgers, but Green Bay can definitely run the ball. And Dallas has struggled against the run. So I think one way Green Bay's offense is going to be able to put up some points if they stick to the run, then they're going to have a chance. And I just wonder how patient Rodgers is going to be able to be. I believe there's a quote I forget who the quote was to. Maybe it was the Fox or whoever, but Rodgers basically said, yeah, I'm going to go down throwing. And so I really doubt his patience to stick with the run against the Dallas defense. And honestly, like in modern defense, there's there's definitely something to the fact of teams, inviting you to run the ball, like inviting you to do it. And if you want to establish a run, we'll live with that. It's just to keep the ball out of the air. That's something that defenses are doing in the modern era now, and um, that's kind of a part of that the new shell look that teams are running. So I think Green Bay's best chance is going to be able to try and run the ball against Dallas, because just the way the Dallas secondary has been, they're healthy again. Green Bay doesn't really have any options, legitimate options on the outside. I think the best way Green Bay is going to be able to attack the Dallas defense is behind their offensive line, AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned them not really being able to take shots down the field. And I've watched a lot of their games this year, and it seems like even when they do take shots down the field, like the first play of their offensive season, it was a deep ball to Christian Watson. He drops it against Minnesota. That kind of pretty much set the whole
Yeah,
tone for that game. But each week, I feel like anytime they take a shot down the field, it's like the ball has no chance. Like either like the receivers and Rodgers aren't on the same page. There's good coverage. The receivers just aren't able to extend quite enough. It's just been an overall disaster as far as that goes. But if they're able to run the football and set up the play action and do different things of that nature, that is where, and we're going to talk about this Cowboys offense, but in a second, but that is where the Packers can really kind of keep the Cowboys offense off the field and, kind of make this a shorter game and kind of rely on a pretty good defense, even though they are a banged up defense.
yeah, absolutely. And they just I think the best way Dallas can be able to get after them is just they're going to have to be able to stop the run on first and second down. Dallas has really struggled on early down runs. And then, where Dallas's defense thrives is when they get offenses into that third and long, those obvious passing downs. That's where Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong, and all the other stable of pass rushers Dallas has are able to pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. And I think Dallas is going to be able to, um, put some heat on Rodgers if they're able to get him into those passing downs. But yeah, I mean, the Dallas defense has been elite at getting after the passer. And I do think there's something to the notion of, and this has been talked about a lot recently. Part of Dallas's issues with stopping the run is they run stunts on the defensive line more than anybody in the NFL, and it's frankly not very close. You know, some of those like that's a downside of running stunts is defense or offenses can catch you in a bad spot if they run the right they call the right running play call against a stunt, because those stunts are designed to get after the quarterback, and defensive linemen are shuffling around. uh you know Gaps are a little bit harder to hold when you're stunting. That's definitely part of the issue with the run game, because Dallas has good run defenders across their linebacking core and across their defensive line. That's definitely part of it. And I was pretty impressed with Jonathan Hankins in his first game against the Bears. I know the Bears were still able
Hmm.
to run the ball, but a lot of it was field scrambling. And Rodgers doesn't
And he's
have the
doing that
legs.
on everybody at this point.
Exactly. And so I was pretty impressed with what Jonathan Hankins brought. I think this is going to be the first week where we're really going to be able to see Hankins' impact on those early down runs. But yeah, I think Green Bay's best chance to be able to try and run the ball against Dallas. And I really think and I saw John Owning mention this on Twitter today, but last thing I'll say about the offense defense matchup is I don't know how many times we'll get this specific matchup because Micah kind of moves around, but I'm really excited for Micah Parsons versus David Bakhtiari, because that's going to be some pretty high level pass rushing versus pass blocking, because Bakhtiari is about as good as it gets. That's a matchup I'm really excited for. And if the key for Dallas is just going to be able to get Green Bay into third and longs and stop those early down runs. If they do that, they're going to be just fine, and Green Bay's offense is going to continue to really struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. And it seemed like I mentioned, all these Packers games that I've been watching this year, just because either they're on TV or the Sunday ticket, whatever, fantasy implications, whatever the case may be, is that it seems like Bakhtiari, like he starts these games and then he doesn't seem to finish very many of them. So I think that's something to keep an eye on as well. Jenkins has pretty much been the same way. I know Aaron Rodgers was talking in his media sessions one of the last 2 weeks, and he was basically like, it was kind of a surprise to me that, Bakhtiari and Jenkins didn't play in a game. And, he really didn't find out till they were going through like a walkthrough on that Saturday before the game. So The injuries are just something that has been just really kind of adding up for the Packers. Aaron Rodgers mentioned that this week as well, just saying that part of the reason why it was funny the way the reporter phrased the question. He was like, "So on offense, where have you guys kind of progressed since training camp? Because to me, it doesn't look like there's been much progression." And Aaron Rodgers went to go. He complimented some of the practice habits have improved, and he said part of the reason why they just haven't been successful is because they just haven't been together healthy very much this year. So it's been a mess in Green Bay this year.
Yeah. I mean, they're sitting at 3-6 and things are looking ugly. Uh, well, let's take a look at the Dallas offense against the Green Bay defense, and then we'll do our predictions and get on out of here. Um, Offensively, things were a lot better for Dallas in their last game against Chicago. And Dak Prescott has been really good since he's returned. He seems healthy. He's been really good in play action. There's just a lot to like about how the offense is trending. I know they still have a ways to go, but they've been able to run the ball really well. They've been able to mitigate some of their pass blocking weaknesses because they're one of the worst teams in the league in pass block win rate. Dak's been able to get the ball out quick, and since Dak has returned, we've been able to get more out of him. We're gonna get more out of Dalton Schultz, and CeeDee Lamb's just been really consistent for them so far this year. Tony Pollard's been really good. I really like the way the offense is trending, and like we already talked about, if they're able to get Odell Beckham Jr. into the mix, then you're really starting to cook a little bit. I'm excited with how the offense is trending, and frankly, they're catching Green Bay at a time where they're pretty banged up as well. Rashawn Gary is done for the year. Devondre Campbell's really banged up. They're all pro linebacker. Eric Stokes is banged up. They're just the Packers are pretty banged up. They haven't been very good this year, but also injuries have definitely played a role in that. And I just think Dallas is going to be able to take advantage of some stuff, and it'll be interesting to see how Dallas's offense travels in the cold weather because I'm just going to be up in the stands and I'm thinking about how cold it's going to be. I'm going to go to the store tomorrow. I'm going to go buy some thermal socks and some long johns to wear underneath all the layers I'm already planning on wearing. I can't imagine playing out there. There was a stat that Dallas does have, or Green Bay has more players that are from the South than Dallas does. I think McCarthy might have mentioned that, but this is still going to be Dallas's first cold weather game of the year. I'm not worried about the offense in that respect, but that Dallas is definitely going to have to be able to run the ball a little bit, get Tony Pollard and Zeke if he's playing going. But yeah, Dallas just needs to make sure that they're able to get the run going on early downs and just stick to the play action that's worked so well for Dak.
Yeah, and you mentioned the cold weather because that was actually a point that I was going to kind of bring home because Dak Prescott is a quarterback. I believe he's played in like 7 cold weather games, and in those 7 games have been some of his worst like QBR performances in his career, like the 7 worst in his career. So I think that is something to keep an eye out on, especially if they, for whatever reason, aren't able to run the football or something like that, or they get behind for whatever reason. Dak Prescott having struggles in cold weather is definitely something to monitor. I do like that, Eric Stokes may miss this game. I think that definitely opens up stuff for the receivers to have some success with. And then if Tony Pollard is the lead back once again, I think you can do some different things with him out of the backfield as far as a pass catcher goes. But for this game, I really want to, because this is something that Jerry brought up in his radio hit this week, is about throwing a little bit more to the tight end. So I hope that Jake Ferguson injury where he missed practice today, I hope that kind of clears itself up before Sunday, because I think he could have a slight X factor role in this game, along with Dalton Schultz coming back, having 2 really strong games before the bye week with Dak Prescott back in the fold. So I think those are some of the keys to kind of pay attention to. But the main one just being Dak Prescott and how he handles the cold weather is
Yeah,
definitely
and
key to
yeah,
the win.
I'm glad you brought up the tight ends because that's something that's been they've leaned on a lot recently. Is they've gone to those 3 tight end sets a lot, be it with Schultz, Ferguson, and Hendershot, or mixing in Sean McEwen in there. They've used those 3 tight end sets a lot recently, and with the talent Dallas has at tight end, that's been it's been paying dividends so far. And I've seen some people saying, "Oh, if you bring in Odell, then you're gonna have to limit how much you do 3 tight ends." No, it just gives you more options. And
Yeah.
with the way Noah Brown is going to be back this week, it seems like Dallas is going to have to really be able to utilize their tight ends, run the ball, and for all of Dak's struggles in the cold weather, that's not something I'm too worried about this week. Um, I just we saw him in a cold weather game last year against Philadelphia where he tore them up, and I know Philadelphia sat a bunch of players and whatever, but Dak still looks solid in that game, so I'm not too worried about the cold, but Dallas does have a chance uh, to really make some hay on the offensive side of the ball with how banged up Green Bay is. One last matchup I do want to bring up is CeeDee Lamb against Jair Alexander. So I don't think Jair is going to travel with. I don't think Jair is going to travel with CD just because that's not something he really does. But Jair Alexander is one of the best slot corners in the league. Whenever he plays out of the slot, and CD Lamb is damn good out of the slot. So I'll be curious to see how both coordinators kind of maneuver Lamb and Alexander around the field. Because Alexander is one of the best in the business, and this will be a really good test for CD. I don't know how much they'll be specifically lined up across each other because, again, Alexander doesn't really shadow number one receivers, but just because that's how Green Bay plays their defensive scheme. But that's a matchup I'm really looking forward to, especially if they're matched up out of the slot once or twice.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Jair Alexander because, like you said, he is one of the best in the business. I enjoyed the back and forth between him and Stephon Diggs a couple of weeks ago. This is a guy that not only is one of the best, he looks at himself as one of the best. He can make plays in the run game. He can make plays on the football. Just an all around, kind of do it all cornerback. Like you mentioned, I don't expect him to travel either. They have more of like a zone concept defense, and I know Packers fans have not been happy with that. I mean, they complain about that pretty much every week when Justin Jeffersons of the world and Stephon Diggs of the world are just
Yeah.
going off on their defense, and it's just like and that's been something that the Packers fans have been complaining about for years since their defensive coordinator, and then they get rid of one, and then they come in and still have the same issues, kind of now. And also one player that I want to bring up on Green Bay's defense to keep an eye out on is Rasul Douglas. So he had the
Yeah.
emergence last year where he kind of came out of nowhere, played really good football. He has not been good this year. He's been completing.
He got paid. He got paid.
He's been committing a ton of penalties. So I think that is a guy where the Cowboys might need to target in the passing game. And I think that's where they can find some success and kind of stay away from Jair Alexander unless the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And again, I know I keep bringing it up, but I really hope Kellen Moore sticks to that play action, early down passing, just all the things that made them successful against Chicago. So let's get into predictions. I'll go first. I gotta say, I don't feel nearly as good about this game as the spread indicates that I should feel. Dallas is laying 5.5 points. That seems like way too many points. And this game just kind of feels like Green Bay's last stand. This kind of feels like their kitchen sink game where they throw everything at Dallas. Rodgers is going to be a little bit more motivated going up against McCarthy this week. I'm sure both of them will downplay it this week, but there's definitely some animosity there. Both of them are going to have a little bit of an edge about themselves this week, whether or not they admit it or not. They definitely do. They're human beings. I don't know, man. I think Green Bay is going to be able to have some success running the ball and keep this game close. I think Dallas is going to win, but I think this is going to be a really tight game. I think we're going to come out of this and saying, okay, Dallas got out of there with a win, but they have some stuff they need to clean up, and Green Bay's just, I don't know. Again, I know I already said it, but this just feels like their kitchen sink game where they throw everything at Dallas. And Matt LaFleur is a very good coach; he's proven that. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 20-17 Dallas. I think the Cowboys come away with a win, but Green Bay covers the spread. But I don't know. This just I don't like the vibes of this game. I hate, I hate that they're
Yep.
catching Green Bay at rock bottom because 3-6 and losing to the Lions, losing 5 in a row. This is rock bottom for Green Bay. I hate that they're catching Green Bay off rock bottom. And above all, when number 12 is on the other sideline, like you and I both, we have some demons when you see that man across the field. So, and there's some demons for the Cowboys in that in that stadium. So, it'll be a really good game. Really excited to go. It's my first time going to Lambeau Field, and I hope I'm able to travel up there and see Cowboys win in person. But yeah, I think Dallas wins, but I think this game's a lot closer than the spread would indicate.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page with you. If the Packers, I think, were a little bit healthier, I think I would probably actually pick the Packers in this football game just because, I mean, 3-6 being, so like you said, rock bottom. So many things have gone wrong. They've lost 5 in a row. Like, are they really going to lose 6 in a row with Aaron Rodgers? Like, all of those things just add up into like a pile of like the Cowboys could, this could be a trap type game when you talk about the matchup next week against Minnesota. Then the Packers are trying to save their season for the most part, and Aaron Rodgers has been here before, where a couple or a few years ago he was like run the table, and they did, and they made the playoffs and made a run, and it just feels like all of that all that is still there for Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah.
but I just think they're too banged up. I don't think they'll be able to win this football game, but I do think it's going to be close. I don't think the Cowboys will get to 30 points this week. I think the Cowboys win somewhere in the ballpark of 23-17, 23-16, somewhere in that range. It's going to be a tight fought game. If the Cowboys offense turns the ball over once or twice, I think that could be the determining factor on whether they win or lose. So I'm counting on Dak Prescott to have ball security. I'm counting on, the running backs, whether Zeke plays or not, Tony Pollard, Malik Davis. I'm counting on them to, make sure they're on the ball. I know Mike McCarthy talked about making sure the guys have their cleats on right because the field can get kind of slick when the weather is that cold out there. The Packers thrive in this type of weather, this time of year. I know I just begs for this every year that he goes out there and loses a playoff game in this type of weather, but that's beside the fact. But yeah, this is a dangerous game for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
But I am going to pick them to win like 23-17, 23-16, somewhere in that range.
Okay. Okay, I think you and I are on the same page on this game as well. And this is going to be a 2 week stretch where we're going to find out a lot about the Cowboys. These are two really tough road games, um, especially next week at Minnesota. And then I know Green Bay's 3-6. I know they've lost 5 in a row, but it is the NFL and anything can happen on any given Sunday. The
And this
Cowboys
year's been
losing.
weird.
Yeah, and this year has been really weird. And Aaron Rodgers is still on that sideline, and Lambeau Field in cold weather is still a really tough place to go get a win. So these next 2 weeks, we're going to find out a lot about the Cowboys. I think personally, if you offered me a contract, said sign here in Dallas, we'll go 1-1 these next 2 weeks, I would sign
Take
up for
it.
a split of these next two
Take it.
games. We're going to find out a lot about the Cowboys this week. I'm really excited for Sunday. Cowboys Packers is always a lot of fun. It's always a really good game. So I'm excited to get down there. Again, hopefully this will be a long drive home if I'm not driving home with a win in my back pocket. But yeah, it'll be a good time. Really excited to see Lambeau Field. That's been a sports bucket list of mine for a long time. I'll be posting stuff on my Twitter just about the experience and stuff like that. Because again, the Lambeau Field, as much as I may dislike the Packers, Lambeau Field's
Iconic.
a pretty legendary stadium. I mean, that's about as legendary as it gets. There's been a lot of stuff has happened there. So, before we get out of here, just want to say, make sure to check out all of our stuff at the Dallas Sports Fanatic. Check out our Cowboys Twitter at Cowboys News 365. Check out our main Twitter at Dallas_Fanatic. You can get us on Instagram at DAL Cowboys Fanatic. You can get Corey on Twitter at the Mr. Douglas with 2 S's. And you can get me on Twitter at Nate_Sant77. Thank you guys for listening. We will talk to you next time on the Silver and Blue podcast when hopefully the Cowboys are 7-2.